So just quickly, before I talk about myself, I just want to say what Turbolinks is. And I'll talk about Stimulus later on in the presentation. Turbolinks is this way, this JavaScript hack or power move to turn server-side HTML pages and hook them up so that they transition super quickly, super snappy. It does that by fetching the next page you click on by Ajax and replaces the body of the page so that you get a nice quick transition to the next page without reloading the entire page. And then when you click the back button, it just fetches from its internal array of the past pages you've been on, and it just brings back the body back into the page. There's a few problems with that. That's why people turn it off. That's essentially what it is. And Stimulus, well, you'll see later on. So a bit about me first. I would really like to be able to have my own web app and sell it, have my own customers, and customers that are happy, intentional, So that's a bit, that's what I'm gunning for. And in the meantime, while I'm freelancing and I'm doing web stuff and I'm learning marketing, jobs to be done, and psychology of the buyer and user research and all these other things. So a bit all over the place, I guess, but I think it's all necessary. But along the way, if I'm going to invest in technologies that are going to be able to make my life easier, but also that I can be able to sell, it has to be technologies that I like. So I'm looking for, a framework that makes the app feel fast and snappy. If I'm going to make my own, not for others, because others are big on React and all these other things. But if I'm going to build something on my own, I want to be able to build it by myself, make it feel fast for my customers and snappy. And that goes for you too. If you've got a small team and you don't want to stretch yourself too much, you want to be able to reuse your resources and be really productive. It'd be nice if this thing could do mobile apps too, right? And it was built as something that would be built with my values. Like the people that had built it, match my values. And what are those for me? Well, starting small is important to me, as opposed to being really ambitious and showing your muscles and pretending like you know everything. Starting small, being humble, build on what doesn't change. A lot of things are fads. A lot of other things are built on solid stuff. Surpassing myself is another thing I value. And what I mean by that is the opposite of that would be to just play the game that everybody else is playing, as opposed to doing stuff that scare me a bit. And those for me would be to do an app that reflects my values. So instead of doing that, or reflects my sensibilities, and instead of the opposite of that would be for me to just go and just use components everywhere and just mishmash an app together. And that doesn't sound too scary, but if I do something that expresses my values, then it's more scary and it's more interesting. So Turbolinks matches a lot of these things on the front end at least, and on the back end that could be Rails, that could be whatever. But Turbolinks is a front end thing. So in order for us to show what that is, I've got a little demo here, and we're going to click on it, and we're going to go see what that does. So see how this site, not GitHub, but the next site, see how this site loads? So these two clicks there, that happens with Turbolinks, and it's super quick. Going from page to page, it's all Ajax. And so really quick, and so that's basically what it gives you. And I think this is also throttled to be a fast 3G connection, so that's pretty quick. You see how parts of the list at the bottom were added via Ajax as well. And so, small thing. So this is an app for making proposals, and these are my clients I'm making proposals to. Something I invented that's not really out there yet, but it's just a demo. Now, to show you how it breaks. Now, I built this other thing. So let's just suppose that you're asked to improve this app that a tea shop, the clerks at a tea shop, they have this little iPad in front of them, and they have a huge selection of teas in the back. And they want to make this app that they got in front of them, which allows them to search for various tea flavors or tea recipes, varieties, based on the ingredients, because that's what people come up to them. I want a tea that has this and that. So, but they want to make it really fast. Their network connection is not always spot on, but also they don't want to waste valuable time with the customer by tapping around and waiting for the screen to say, like, saying I'm sorry, it's a bit slow, the usual trait that they peddle. But essentially, that's it. On the left, it's without Turbolinks, and on the right, it's with Turbolinks. And you'll see how Turbolinks breaks a thing. So you've got a select box. Let's try this. Okay. So over here, you got a select box, and then you can enter more than one sort of category. And this list usually would, populate with what you find. This would be a server-generated list that you just add to the page. And so let's see how it fares. Come on. Okay. So here we go. So that's on the right. That's the Turbolinks. That's on the left. So you start clicking. You start typing. I want something that has blue flower and pomegranate shells. And oh, we found velvet and blue. So let's click on it. It takes a while, so this is also throttled. And when you click back, it's a bit slow, but everything works again. And you can click on them, and you can delete them, and this component still works. Now let's try with Turbolinks. Just installed with nothing, like I just didn't change anything. And you've got the same idea. On the first page, it works. Everything is good. Now I'm going to click on Velvet and Blue, and it's going to go Ajax the next page in. And then when I click back, it's going to take the DOM of the previous page and put it back in exactly as it was. But check out the thing, it doesn't work anymore. That component does, so I see some heads nodding. You know what I'm talking about. What happened is that this problem is that the app got all of its DOM from before, but none of its event handlers, the clicks and the mouse over and all these things. So they're all removed because it's just a copy of the DOM and it didn't keep those things connected. So let's go through the Turbulence Lifecycle. You've got a page and you've got a head, so the body and then the head, the top, which you don't see. When a new page is being clicked on, Turbolinks takes in the body and replaces the existing body with the body of the next thing that's coming in, merges the head. If there's any differences in the head, it'll just figure it out and add script elements that are missing or CSS or whatever. And it keeps a cache of snapshots for back and clicking back and clicking forward again. So that's essentially it. And when it does that, when it takes a snapshot, a previous snapshot, puts it back in, copies the body, and all those event handlers are gone. How do we solve that problem?
Just to recap, every time you attach an event handler that using JavaScript, if you do that, you're using Turbolinks, you're losing these event handlers.
Yeah, so the question was, every time you're attaching event handlers like on, click, on an actual object, on an element, when that element goes into the snapshot, the Turbolinks snapshot, and is brought back in, that click that you had attached to it is no longer there. It's no longer attached to the element because it's essentially like it was. It's a facade. It's all the elements there, but the click handlers are not carried with it, and that's because of the way that browsers copy objects, the DOM. So when a copy is made, it makes a deep copy, but it just copies the elements and not their elements. So this is maybe a browser bug, but essentially that's what it is. So here we go. We got that problem here. Again, when you click back and nothing works. So let's take a look at what happens. So essentially at the beginning, you've got this thing at the top, and this is what your code is on the left. And all you've got is, you've got this, it's a select basically. It's all there is to it at the beginning, before we change this, before we use the select to jQuery plugin to do this. So it's a select, and it has all these options in there and whatever. And now this is what, after the fact, after we run the JavaScript, it has all these things there. In addition to the select at the top, it has a span that actually hid that select, which is hidden, and you've got a bunch of elements that select to has added to mimic a select in those boxes and everything. So again, we've got this problem. So what do? One of the things that Turbolinks does is it announces whenever a new pages come in through the event called Turbolinks load. That's the event. So you can hook into that and say, well, okay, a new body has been added to my page. I can then inject my event handlers again, but I don't know the innards of how select2 has wired these clicks and all these things, so all these objects are created. So that's a problem. So we'll get to this example later on in the presentation. But first, I'm asking, that's fine if you've got just one element on Turbolinks load. Say on your page, you say, whenever Turbolinks load is thrown as an event, I'm going to catch it and I'm going to do something to wire up my page. But what happens if you've got multiple of these things on the page that you want to attach? And what if you've got a brand new set of elements you add through Ajax? Are you going to have another event like on Ajax done and then look for the new payload and then add some click events to those things again? And then you got to do the same thing, same code for on Turbolinks load. It becomes a bit of a spaghetti thing. So, for example, in this case, let's see the video. You've got a list of clients, and the thing at the top here would, you click, now it just doesn't alert, but you've got one of those there, and if you scroll down, you've got another one. And that one was added through Ajax. And they both work fine. That's a stimulus demo, and it was easy to set up. But essentially, we've also got another thing. We've got show 2 proposals, and the other one was just show 1 proposal, so there's something specific there to each of the instances of this thing we want to wire together. So this is where stimulus comes in. Okay? Stimulus is this small, very fresh, very nicely done way to basically hook in some event handlers on some events, on some elements as they appear to the page, and remove those event handlers as they go out. So very, very, very nice. And it basically allows you to have a controller defined for each new element you add to the page in order for it to control that object. Javan, one of the developers at Basecamp who created Stimulus, says it's a bit like CSS adds, styling to each element as they're added to the page. Well, Stimulus adds behavior to all the elements you add to the page. And those elements can be added through server-side stuff, Ajax or whatever, or it can be any other thing. So in this case, we've got two of these things, one at the top, one at the bottom. And you've got one that says show 1 proposal, the other one show 2 proposal, and the alert knew about how many proposals there were. So let's see how it's all hooked up in the code. Okay, so at the start, I've got this on the left, you've got the code, the HTML, and on the right, you've got the controller for Stimulus. And this is basically what a controller in Stimulus looks like. I'll draw your attention to, it doesn't look that great, sorry. I'm gonna draw your attention to this data controller attribute right there. This says that this span and all of its elements underneath it are controlled by a controller called preview proposals, which is right over here. Preview proposals underscore controller.js. And we're using Webpack to wire this up so that all these controllers are going to be loaded at the time of compilation of our JavaScript. And Stimulus is going to be smart enough to look in the directory and look, do I have a controller called preview proposals? Yes, then I'm going to wire it up. And I'm going to create an instance. And so over here you've got this, and on the right you've got that stuff. Over here you've got a data action on this A link, which says show one proposal or two proposals, whatever. And it says click, and whenever I receive a click, then execute the show method of my preview proposal controller. Oh, this is great, thank you. Super. So this show method basically does nothing right now. It just throws an alert, but it can do whatever you want with it. Another small thing is that you've got this num proposals getter, and what this does is it allows my controller to know how many proposals I've got, and Stimulus gives me some nice ways to go get that data attribute, and that data attribute is right here, data preview proposals amount, and that's the nomenclature, and then here this is where I put the amount of proposals, so it knows about it. And then whenever I click that alert, it goes and checks, gets that amount, and then does something with it, and it knows about it right here, and it throws the red alert. So it's a simple example, and it can get, this controller can have a lot more stuff in there. And I'll show you in my next example. And you'll have to, excuse me a bit, I'm going to have to cycle through a bit of these. Okay. This thing here also, so I said earlier that this was fetching there's a second page of these clients. I've got the first 5 and then the second 2 is a second page. So how do I automatically determine when I'm at that point in the page where I can go fetch through Ajax? I can use libraries for that, but how about we use Stimulus for that? So here we go. We've got this, this place in my code on the left here is where I've got my more clients sort of div. And this div is just in the code. It has nothing but data attributes on it. Okay, and it says that it's taken care of by this controller. And I'm adding a URL attribute here that basically says what's the URL of the next page. On the right, I've got an interesting little controller. So over here I've got something new. I've got connect and disconnect. These methods that are just understood by Stimulus and called if you've got them. Connect says whenever an instance has been connected with something in the DOM. Disconnect is when it's being discarded. Over here what I'm adding is I'm adding a watcher. On connect I'm adding a watcher on the a watcher on the document so that I can understand whether the element has appeared in the viewport or actually on an offset of 100 pixels. So if it's 100 pixels from the bottom of the page, then kick in my code and go fetch and go do my add more clients thing, and it adds these clients via Ajax. And so that's basically it. And whenever that object is being removed from the page, because in this add more client, I add this new page and I remove this element here. Whenever it's removed, then the watcher is disposed. That's it. Simple enough. And assuming my next page, my page number 2, might have one of these things getting added at the bottom of my list, then Stimulus will kick in, pick it up, add this watcher again, and kick in. And if this element is absent, it means it's the last page, then that's it. You get to the bottom. And I kind of think it's elegant. I don't know about you guys. But I really like it. So back to our little problem here of what do we do about this thing? So essentially what we got to do is we can use this connect and disconnect sort of idea. And the idea is that we're going to use stimulus to wrap this little fun little thing inside it. So this is the code that I had before for my select, for my ingredient selector. This is what my selector was on the left. And I was not in a controller, a stimulus controller. I was just right on document ready, find any of these data behavior multi-selects, and for each of them, put in a select to with a right placeholder text. The placeholder was defined right over here. So that's good enough, but it only works on the first page. It doesn't work on Turbolinks, returns. So what do? Let's package that up in a nice little multi-select thing. So bear with me here. I'm going to try to see what can we see. Over here, I put it inside a div. The div is called data controller multi-select, which is this file here. Now I've got this select here. And what's important, there's no data action. I'm not doing any click things. Select to does all that job for me. So I just want this code to know what this select is called, and I'm adding this data target attribute, data target, and it's called select. So whenever in here, I've got at the bottom here a getter for the select property, and it just goes and finds the target that's called select. And it exposes in my code as this.select. So far so good. On connect, what do? I do the select to mount, which is this method here, which is the same thing you saw before. Select to and puts it up. But now what I got to do is I've got to also do something else. Now this is other event that Turbolinks publishes, and it fires just before it stores the DOM in a snapshot. And that's called Turbolinks before cache. So right before it removes this element from the DOM, I need to do something about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo the select to's, business of adding elements to my DOM, and then I'm going to save its state. So I'm going to do select to unmount. Select to is kind of nice. It's handy. It has a destroy, method. So, and it undoes its whatever it did to the DOM, and it brings you back to what you had before. So that's great. Also have to save the state so that in my actual DOM, my blue flower and pomegranate shells, which were selected in my multi-select select box, so that they're marked legitimately in the DOM as selected for those options. So it basically it changes the DOM so that it is prepared to be rewired when I come back from a back operation. You see what I mean? So I'm removing whatever select2 has added. It removes all of its event handlers. It brings you back to the HTML that was there before. I'm making sure that the HTML will tell it for next time, these are the two things that I had selected. And by doing that, I should have everything I need. So that's at this point that I click escape and I go. There we go, we got it right over here. So let's do a refresh. Are you even connected to the Wi-Fi? Sorry. Yep. I guess not. Sorry, I'm gonna have to switch Wi-Fi. Oh, sorry guys. Really sorry. This should work. Let's try again. I'll edit that out from the video. By the way, I'm recording this, so if you want to share it after. It's working. Come on. Okay, good. Now we've got this. I'm gonna add blue flowers. By the way, this is anybody really like tea here? Yeah. I'm looking for this recipe. I don't know how to make this tea, but it has blue flower, pomegranate shells, barberry, and black tea, and it really tastes fantastic. I want to make it myself, but I can't find it anywhere. I click. This is through Turbolinks. I click back, and it works perfectly. So what you didn't see is that it undid the select to, and it stored it in the DOM and all that stuff. But basically now it's all wired back in, and it works. So that's basically it. That's basically my presentation, and I don't have anything else to show you except for more information. This is what you can check out. Stimulus, Turbolinks, and this Propose Ahoy is the Stimulus Turbolinks demo, and the Select 2 I'm going to publish. It's not yet on GitHub, and I'm going to put it on my GitHub later on if you'd like. So that's it. Thanks for coming along. Any questions? Sorry.
That's all good.
Yeah, Shaka.
Using any third-party libraries.
Yeah.
Put it event handlers. They will be using this Stimulus app.
Yeah.
So we don't have the similar problems. It's only for
Yeah. Well, so the question is, what if you use third-party libraries that don't use Stimulus? Well, if I would be using that, I wouldn't be using anything that sort of hijacks the whole page. Just that adds components. So select to is one jQuery component. But I was going to add to the presentation the fact that you can use Stimulus to, for one, you can use Stimulus to wrap pretty much anything you want and use a connect and disconnect and all that stuff in Turbolinks before cache in order to determine how to set it up and how to undo it, how to prepare it for the Turbolinks cache. But while you're at it, there's a plethora of non-jQuery components that are kind of nice and that are already component-based. I like Vue.js as a JavaScript front end, and it could be used to make whole big single-page applications, but it can also be used just for small components. You can wire a Vue.js component the same way. So what it does is, and you're already using Webpack, you're already using ECMAScript 6, and you're already using all this beautiful stuff, and you're reaching out for a component from Vue.js and adding it in. It's not that much trouble, and you can make that component talk to your Stimulus controller and declare the values that it has, and you can store that in a hidden field or whatever for the rest of your page to know about it. And whenever your Turbolinks before cache, you wind that down, that component, you store its state, you serialize it, the whole state, and you put it in the data variable so that when you come back, it springs it up again in exactly the state it was. So I would look at that. If I wanted to do something, I would say, is there a component, Vue.js component out there that does the job? And then I would wrap it in Stimulus, I would hook it up, and then that would be it. I don't know if that answers your question. Because those Vue.js things already have like its own way to do event handlers based on, like it's all encapsulated. And so, it's pretty neat. It does its job, yeah. Jim?
Are there any other use cases for Stimulus? So it solves the problem with Turbolinks, but
Yeah,
it by itself.
Yeah, I didn't mention. I forgot to mention that you don't need Turbolinks to work with Stimulus. It works great if you do, but Stimulus is just Stimulus. It just watches the DOM for mutations in the DOM, and then allows you to hook in some controllers on the parent object. That's it. So even if you do have a single-page application done in React or whatever, but you still want to do something not done in React. I don't know why you would do that, and then you'd have it would watch the DOM, and then it would notice that you've got this new controller stimulus eligible element in the DOM. It would hook up and work. So yeah.
What's the testing story like for stimulus?
It has its own testing environment. So for example, if I was going to use a Vue.js component, and Vue.js sometimes changes versions and things stop working, whatever, maybe that component was upgraded and my HTML for spawning it needs to be changed. I can detect that. I can just spawn up a unit test for that and specifically have my test create a fixture, add this element on the page, stimulus catches it, adds the thing, and then after it's added, I can check whether it's been added correctly, and then I can remove it, unpack it, put the Vue.js thing back in its box and see if it's serialized properly, and you can do all that stuff. So I didn't put that in, but it's pretty good. Yeah.
Follow-up, actually. So we ended up using TurboGraph for some small applications that
Yep.
and TurboGraph, yeah. So we ended up running. I found that you always had to manage your partials. So in one case, you were doing a backend call for pagination. What was the format being returned to you? Was it HTML, and then you were like taking that piece and replacing it on the page, or was it JSON that you were then iterating through? Like, what's the format?
It was HTML. So the question was, so you're talking about TurboGraph, and you were talking about partials, and you were talking about what's the output of my my second page of clients. My second page of clients was HTML, and it was the partial that I was iterating on. It was a client partial, and it was done twice basically, and the partial just defined it just basically had HTML that said this is how my client instance, HTML block is done, and it has data controller, preview proposals and etc. But the thing is that the HTML in your partial becomes really legible because it says, yeah, okay, this is going to be controlled by this thing, and this action, this click action, will actually throw the show, get the show method to be. So it's very verbose at the HTML, and it just says what you need to know. And you can create some method names that essentially tell the story of what this HTML, how it's going to behave in the real world. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
And so TurboGraph is a Turbolinks, in-house Shopify Turbolinks replacement for your needs kind of thing?
Yeah, you would define HTML and what to replace, and it would grab that from the response and replace that element on the page rather than replacing the entire body.
The entire body, okay. It graphs, okay, good. I got it. So it would work in that case, yeah. Yep.
I'll just run this by you to see if I'm getting it. So
Okay, good.
basically, I got a page, it's cached, the DOM elements lose all of their event handlers. If I bring it back, I've just got the HTML.
That's right.
It's broken.
It's broken.
So what this has done is it's taken all of the things that were bound to my DOM and it's turned them into HTML for me, which does come back.
Yeah.
And it's been declared in the HTML.
That's right.
So what happens is that's used to rebind all of the events.
Exactly. Recreate whatever was there before that is live,
Right.
and behave, and that has behavior. That's right. And that's the trick of using Turbolinks before cache to do something with those elements, to render them in a state that they can be reinterpreted back into a living, breathing piece of DOM. Got it? Yep.
What happens if you're on page A, the state of that page is in the DOM,
Yeah.
and navigate to a separate page, that's going through Turbolinks, and something on that second page updates a piece of data
Yeah.
that the first page was referencing. The DOM, the state is still referenced in the DOM, which is cached. What happens when you press back?
That's
That could be out shape?
Super good question. So the idea is, you're on page A. I'm going to recap. Page A, you navigate to a new page, then there's something that is similar in both page A and page B, but it updates the DOM on page B. And you'd like page A to know about it. So when you click back, page A is like out of it. For example, you've added something to your shopping cart, and the shopping cart now says 2 items, and you had 1 item before. So how do you do that? Well, there's 2 things. First thing is that when you click back, it actually takes a snapshot and puts it right back right away. But it also updates the page. So when you click back, it takes the snapshot copy, puts it back into the body, and then refreshes from the server, goes and gets the actual real body, and then once it has that, puts it back. So that's the first thing. But in actual fact, if you'd like that number 2 to not go to number 1 and then back up to number 2 for your shopping cart, you can declare zones in your HTML where Turbolinks is going to carry them from one page to the next. And so they're like zones that are, the shopping cart button here with a 2, whatever, this thing makes sure that it's, even if you bring back an old page, this thing take the most recent version of that element in the DOM and put it back in. So it's just a Turbolinks trick exception to make it work. Yeah, there's not too many of those things in Turbolinks, but that's one of them. There's a few other ones, like if you don't want a specific script inside your page that's in the body, and you don't want Turbolinks to parse it, you can add a data attribute, and it's going to ignore it. So things like that. Okie doke. Thank you very much for coming.